How do you know where you are unless you know where you've come from? People began to notice that individual species of animals and plants, but mostly animals, were becoming rarer and rarer. And a group of naturalists and scientists and administrators got together and started the conservation movement. And the emphasis in those days was very much on species. And the people then said, we must do something about it, very commendably. But what did you do? Well, the initial reaction, believe it or not, was to find the survivors and put them in zoos. Looking back at it now, perhaps it wasn't as sensible as we all thought then. You realized that actually you couldn't just take them from a zoo pen and put them out into the wild world, because they didn't know about the wild world and they didn't know how to survive. And anyway, people were beginning to get a little more sophisticated about what conservation meant. It wasn't about just one species, however charismatic it might be. It was, to use a word that was surprisingly less familiar than it is today, it was about ecosystems. And they discovered that some species could be conserved in a quite small area, but other species required huge areas. So again, there was a subtle shift. A shift to realize that if you wanted to conserve the world and to conserve the species that were in it, you had to take a big section of land. The conservation was about planet, wild areas of the planet. If you're going to conserve nature, you have to conserve the whole community. And within that community, a strange, powerful animal called Homo sapiens. That too had to be thought about and catered for. And it didn't matter whether people on the other side of the earth were simply prepared to give money, if in fact the people themselves living on these lands, living alongside the creatures that we were so concerned about, weren't aware of what was going on and weren't in sympathy with what was going on. And it was at this point that the World Land Trust, with John Burton, began to formulate important ideas. And so the notion grew that not only would we raise money, the WLT would raise money, but it would also raise expertise to help people with conservation knowledge gleaned from all around the world to solve those conservation problems. But the people, the indigenous people, the local people, were central to all this. WLT now is a major factor in many parts of the world, channeling funds and help and expertise into those areas where they are so badly needed, but leaving the ultimate control in the people who live on that land 365 days of the year. Conservation has been transformed. WLT is at one of the cutting edges of that transformation. If there is one shaft of light and hope in looking ahead at what's going to happen, it is, in my view, that which you see when you see the history of our World Land Trust and the generosity which people who help World Land Trust have helped it to spread its influence worldwide.